The galaxy was dying. One planet after another disappeared into darkness. Massive alien cities burned under red skies. Space stations floated silently like broken metal ghosts. Entire fleets vanished without sending a final message. Fear spread across the stars faster than the war itself. Nobody knew how to stop the enemy inside the Galactic Council capital. Thousands of leaders gathered in emergency session. The chamber was enormous. Built in the center of a giant station orbiting the brightest world in the galaxy. Blue holograms covered the air, showing battle reports from every corner of known space. Every report carried the same result: defeat. Anxious voices filled the room. The Zereth Empire has fallen. The northern defense fleets are gone. We lost contact with 12 colonies. No survivors found. The council members looked terrified. Some races were famous warriors, others controlled entire star systems. But now all of them looked weak. At the center platform stood Supreme Counselor Virax, an old alien leader covered in silver armor. His eyes moved slowly across the chamber. For the first time in centuries, even he looked afraid. "The enemy advances toward the core worlds," he said quietly. No defense line has survived. A giant hologram suddenly appeared above the chamber. Dark ships filled the screen. Their designs looked unnatural. Sharp black metal covered their bodies like living armor. No windows, no visible weapons, only endless darkness. One council member spoke nervously. "What are these things?" Nobody answered, because nobody truly knew. The enemy arrived from beyond explored space 6 months earlier. At first, the galaxy ignored the reports. Small colonies disappeared near the outer rim every year. It was normal: pirates, civil wars, disease. But then entire military fleets started vanishing. The enemy attacked without warning, without communication, without mercy. Worst of all, they adapted quickly. Every weapon used against them became useless after a few battles. One by one, the great empires collapsed. Now the war had reached the heart of the galaxy. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the chamber. Red lights flashed across every wall. An officer rushed forward in panic. "Emergency report," he shouted. "The enemy fleet has entered the capital system." Fear exploded across the council. Some leaders stood immediately, others started arguing loudly. "It's impossible. The defense fleets should stop them. There are thousands of warships protecting this sector." The officer's voice shook badly. "There were," he whispered. A terrible silence filled the chamber. Then the station windows slowly darkened. At first, nobody understood why. But seconds later, fear spread through the room. Ships, thousands of them. Black enemy warships covered the stars outside like a giant shadow swallowing space itself. Several council members stepped backward in horror. One alien woman whispered, "They found us." A massive explosion suddenly shook the station. The enemy had started attacking. Warning sirens screamed through every hallway outside. Defense ships fired endless streams of blue energy into the darkness. But the enemy fleet kept moving forward without slowing down. Counselor Virax closed his eyes for a moment. Then he spoke the words nobody wanted to hear. "There is only one species that can stop this war." The chamber became silent again. Every leader already knew the answer. But nobody wanted to say it aloud finally. One council member whispered the forbidden word: humans. Fear changed instantly. Now the room looked uncomfortable, angry, uncertain. Humanity had once terrified the galaxy 200 years earlier. Humans entered galactic warfare for the first time during the expansion wars. At first, the other races underestimated them. Humans came from a small world near the edge of explored space. Their technology looked primitive compared to ancient empires. But humans fought differently. They never surrendered. They adapted faster than every other species. And worst of all, humans became stronger during war. The expansion wars lasted only 12 years, but during those years, humanity destroyed 3 major empires, entire fleets burned. Planets surrendered in fear before human ships even arrived. When the war finally ended, the Galactic Council made a decision. Humanity was banned from all galactic warfare forever. Earth became isolated from the rest of the galaxy, and human fleets disappeared beyond forbidden space. For 2 centuries, nobody saw them again. One council member spoke angrily. "We cannot trust humans," another shouted back. "And we cannot survive without them." Another explosion shook the chamber violently. Parts of the ceiling collapsed as smoke filled the air. Outside the station windows, the enemy fleet moved closer. Defense lines were collapsing one after another. Councillor Verex turned toward the military commanders. "Send the signal," he ordered quietly. Several leaders looked shocked. "You cannot be serious," one protested. Verex stared directly at him. "The galaxy is already dying," he replied. A deep silence followed his words, far away, beyond forbidden space. An ancient signal traveled through the darkness toward Earth. For the first time in 200 years, the galaxy was asking humanity for help. And somewhere near Earth's hidden borders, enormous warships slowly began to wake from the shadows. The stars above Earth were silent. Far beyond the outer planets, hidden deep inside a dark nebula, hundreds of massive warships floated without movement. Their black metal hulls blended perfectly with the darkness around them. No lights shined from the fleet. No signals escaped into space, to the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had disappeared long ago, but humanity had never been weak. They had only been waiting inside the largest battleship. A human officer stood beside a giant holographic screen. Commander Elias Kane watched the incoming transmission carefully. His face remained calm, but his eyes narrowed slowly around him. Dozens of human officers stood silently inside the command room. The message repeated again. "Emergency request from the Galactic Council. The galaxy requires immediate human assistance." Some officers laughed quietly. Others looked angry. One female commander crossed her arms. "Now they remember humans exist," she said coldly. Nobody answered immediately, because everyone inside the room remembered what happened 200 years earlier. The galaxy had feared humanity after the expansion wars. Alien empires called humans monsters, dangerous, violent, uncontrollable. The Galactic Council blamed humans for the destruction of entire systems, even though humans had only fought to survive in the end. Humanity was removed from galactic society completely. Trade ended, communication stopped. Earth and its colonies disappeared behind heavily guarded borders. The galaxy abandoned humanity, but humans never forgot. Commander Kane finally spoke. "How bad is the situation?" A young officer activated another hologram instantly. Dozens of burning star systems appeared across the map of the galaxy. Red warning symbols flashed everywhere. 23 empires destroyed, the officer reported. Over 4,000 colonies lost. Enemy forces continue advancing towards central systems. Another officer looked disturbed. "The Council fleets are collapsing too fast," he said. Commander Kane remained silent for several seconds. Then he asked the most important question. "What do we know about the enemy?" The room became quiet. That silence itself was dangerous. Finally, the intelligence officer answered carefully. "Almost nothing. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They attack every species equally. And no captured ship has ever been recovered." Another hologram appeared. A recording from a destroyed alien battlefield played above the command table. Thousands of black enemy ships moved through space like shadows. Energy weapons struck them constantly. But the enemy fleet never slowed down. Human officers watched carefully. Then the video suddenly ended in static. Complete destruction. Commander Kane leaned back slowly. For the first time, even he looked concerned. A loud mechanical voice echoed across the bridge. "Unauthorized vessel entering outer defense zone." Every officer turned instantly. Another hologram appeared. A small alien ship drifted near the edge of human space, badly damaged and barely functioning. Parts of the hull were burning, life support systems were failing. Council ship, an officer confirmed. They actually came here themselves. Several human soldiers immediately looked angry. Send them away, one officer said. They abandoned humanity centuries ago, another added. But Commander Kane continued watching the damaged vessel silently. Finally, he gave an order. Bring them in, hours later. Inside a secured docking chamber, armed human soldiers surrounded the alien visitors carefully. 3 alien diplomats stepped out slowly from the ruined ship. They looked exhausted, frightened, and weak. One of them could barely walk. The leader of the delegation removed his hood carefully. His silver skin was covered in burn marks from recent battles. "I am Ambassador Thex," he said nervously. "We come on behalf of the Galactic Council." Human soldiers did not lower their weapons. Commander Kane entered the chamber moments later. The alien ambassador looked surprised immediately. The humans standing around him were far different from the humans remembered in old galactic records. Their armor looked more advanced than anything inside the known galaxy. Cold black combat suits covered with glowing blue symbols. Weapons unlike anything the Council possessed. Even their ships outside looked terrifying. Humanity had evolved far beyond the galaxy's expectations. Ambassador Thex swallowed nervously. "You became stronger," he whispered. Commander Kane stopped directly in front of him. "You expected us to stay weak?" The alien lowered his eyes, unable to answer. For several moments, silence filled the chamber. Finally, the ambassador spoke again. Deep inside the dark nebula surrounding human space, the unknown black ship moved without sound. No engine light burned behind it. No communication signal escaped from its surface. It simply drifted through the darkness like a giant predator watching its prey. Inside Earth's Defense Command Station, red warning lights flashed across every screen. Human officers rushed between control panels while military AI systems calculated thousands of combat possibilities. Every second, Commander Elias Kane stood at the center of the bridge, staring at the enemy vessel hologram silently. The room felt colder than before. Still no response? Kane asked. A communications officer shook her head nervously. "We tried every known language and signal pattern," she replied. Nothing answered. Another officer looked disturbed while studying sensor data. "This ship is strange," he said quietly. "It has no visible weapons, no shields, no heat signature, almost like..." He stopped speaking for a moment. "Like it's dead." Nobody liked those words. Commander Kane crossed his arms slowly. "Dead ships do not travel across galaxies," he replied. Suddenly the station shook violently. Several alarms screamed together across the bridge. A tactical officer turned pale instantly. "Commander," he shouted. The ship just disappeared. Every screen inside the room went black for 1 second. Then new warning signals exploded everywhere. Enemy contact detected inside defense perimeter. Human officers looked shocked. The enemy ship had somehow crossed millions of kilometers instantly. Now it floated directly beside one of humanity's outer defense stations. Before anyone could react, the station vanished, not exploded. Not destroyed, vanished. One moment it existed. The next moment only empty space remained. Complete silence filled the bridge. Even experienced soldiers looked disturbed. Over 10,000 human personnel had disappeared in seconds. Without debris, without survivors, without a single shot fired. Commander Kane's face hardened immediately. "Launch scout fleet," he ordered. "Maintain long-range distance. I want answers." Minutes later, 20 human warships exited the nebula carefully. Unlike alien fleets, human ships moved in complete formation. Every vessel connected through advanced combat AI systems. Blue engine light illuminated the darkness as they surrounded the enemy ship from multiple directions. Inside the lead cruiser, Captain Mira Sol watched the black vessel through tactical screens. The ship looked wrong. Its surface moved slightly like liquid metal breathing slowly. Strange symbols covered the hull, glowing dark red for brief moments before disappearing again. Mira felt uneasy watching it, almost like the ship itself was alive. A young officer beside her whispered nervously, "Captain, do you feel that?" She frowned. "Feel what?" The officer swallowed hard, like something is watching us, before Mira could answer. Every light inside the bridge flickered violently. Then all communication systems died instantly. One by one, human ships disappeared from radar. Entire cruisers vanished without warning. Panic spread across the fleet. Ship 7 is gone. Cruiser 12 lost. No debris detected. It's impossible. Suddenly a terrible sound echoed through every speaker. Low, deep, unnatural, like thousands of voices whispering together. Several crew members covered their ears in pain. Blood ran from one officer's nose as screens around him shattered suddenly. Then the black ship finally moved. Its surface slowly opened like a giant mechanical eye. Inside the darkness, red light appeared. Not technology, not fire, something alive. Captain Mira's breathing slowed for 1 second. She saw shapes moving inside the red light. Human shapes screaming silently, then the enemy attacked. A wave of dark energy exploded outward across space. 3 human destroyers disappeared instantly. Another ship split in half without explosion. Commander Kane watched the battle from Earth Command with growing horror. Human fleets were the strongest military force in known space. Yet this single enemy vessel was destroying them effortlessly. Then suddenly, the tactical AI discovered something unusual. "Commander," the AI announced. "The enemy reacts to concentrated ion frequencies." Kane turned immediately. "Meaning?" A scientist answered quickly. "The energy field around the ship weakens for less than 1 second. 1 second is enough," Kane replied coldly. He activated fleet-wide communications. All ships focus ion cannons on target center. Fire together. Far in the darkness. Surviving human ships repositioned carefully. Energy built across their weapons, turning space blue around them. Captain Mira held her breath. "Now," she ordered. Dozens of ion beams struck the enemy ship at the exact same moment. For the first time, the black vessel reacted. Its surface cracked open slightly. A terrible scream echoed through space itself. Not electronic, not mechanical, alive. Then the enemy ship retreated suddenly into darkness, disappearing beyond sensors instantly. The battle ended as quickly as it started. Silence returned across the nebula. But victory did not feel real. Half the scout fleet was gone. Destroyed by a single enemy ship. Back inside Earth Command, nobody celebrated. Because now humanity understood the terrifying truth. The galaxy had not exaggerated the danger. If one enemy vessel could do this much damage, then entire fleets could destroy civilizations easily. Commander Kane stared at the tactical map silently. Then another officer rushed toward him urgently. "Commander," she said breathlessly. "We discovered something else." She activated a hidden transmission recovered during the battle. A secret signal, human-made, sent directly toward the enemy ship moments before it attacked. Someone inside human space had helped the enemy find Earth. And suddenly, the war became far more dangerous than anyone imagined. The war reached human space 3 days later. No warning came before the attack. No enemy message appeared, only darkness. Across the outer defense systems near Pluto, human monitoring stations suddenly stopped transmitting one after another. Entire sectors went silent within minutes, inside Earth Command. Massive holograms flashed red across every wall. Commander Elias Kane walked quickly into the central war room while officers shouted reports around him. The enemy fleet entered Sector 9. Defense stations destroyed. Long-range scanners losing targets. They are moving too fast. Kane stopped beside the giant tactical display. For the first time, the full enemy fleet appeared clearly before humanity. Thousands of black ships filled the outer solar system like a living storm. Even experienced human officers looked uncomfortable seeing their numbers. One young soldier whispered quietly, "How do we fight that?" Commander Kane heard him, but before he could answer, another voice spoke first. "We fight like humans." Everyone turned toward Admiral Sophia Reyes as she entered the war room. The legendary admiral had not commanded a battle in nearly 20 years. Yet her name alone was enough to silence entire fleets. She walked calmly toward the tactical map, studying enemy movement carefully. Then she gave her first order. "Wake the Titans." Several officers looked shocked immediately. One commander hesitated. "Admiral." The Council banned Titan-class weapons after the expansion wars. Sophia looked directly at him. "The Council does not control humanity anymore," she replied coldly. Deep beneath the oceans of Europa, hidden military factories suddenly activated after decades of silence. Gigantic metal doors opened slowly beneath the ice. Then the Titans awakened. Massive human warships larger than entire alien cities rose from underground docks. Their black armor covered kilometers of space. Blue energy burned across their hulls like lightning trapped inside metal. These were not normal battleships. These were weapons built to end civilizations far away near Pluto. The first human defense fleet prepared for battle. Captain Mira Sol stood aboard the cruiser Valkyrie, watching enemy ships approach through the command screen. Her fleet was badly outnumbered, but unlike the alien empires, humans did not fear impossible battles. Around her, soldiers prepared silently. Nobody panicked, nobody begged for escape. One Marine smiled while loading his rifle. "Finally," he said quietly. Something dangerous. Moments later, space exploded into war. Human destroyers fired massive ion cannons across the darkness. Blue beams ripped through enemy formations, tearing black ships apart in giant explosions. For the first time since the war began, enemy vessels actually stopped advancing. Human fleets attacked differently from alien fleets. Aliens fought carefully. Humans fought aggressively. Every ship moved like part of one giant machine. Fast, brutal, precise. Captain Mira watched tactical screens rapidly update around her. "Enemy ships adapting," an officer warned. "Energy resistance increasing," Mira nodded immediately. "Switch to rail cannons," she ordered, within seconds. Human ships changed attack patterns completely. Massive metal projectiles accelerated near light speed slammed into enemy vessels. Black ships shattered apart under the impacts. Humanity adapted just as quickly as the enemy did. That was why the galaxy once feared them. But then something terrible happened. One giant enemy ship moved forward from the center of the fleet. Far larger than the others, its surface opened slowly, revealing a massive red core glowing like a dying star. Every human sensor system immediately screamed warnings. "Unknown energy surge detected. Impact level catastrophic." Commander Kane's voice echoed across fleet communications instantly. "All ships retreat now." But it was already too late. The enemy super weapon fired. A wave of dark red energy crossed space silently. Then entire human ships disappeared. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, gone in seconds. Even light itself bent strangely around the attack. Captain Mira watched. Silence filled Earth Command after the enemy transmission ended. Nobody moved for several seconds. The words echoed inside every human mind. "We came for humanity." Commander Elias Kane stared at the dark screen carefully. Something about the creature's voice felt wrong. Not just dangerous, familiar, around the war room. Officers exchanged nervous looks. The enemy had destroyed worlds across the galaxy. Yet now it claimed humanity was the true target all along. Admiral Sophia Reyes finally broke the silence. "Find out why," she ordered, hours later. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, Hidden elevators carried Kane and Sophia toward a classified underground facility. Very few humans even knew the place existed. The walls were ancient steel covered with faded military symbols from before the expansion wars. At the bottom level, giant blast doors slowly opened, revealing a dark archive chamber filled with forgotten records. An old man waited for them inside, Dr. Marcus Vale, one of the last surviving scientists from the early days of human space exploration. His white hair and tired eyes showed decades of hidden secrets. "You finally heard their message," he said quietly. Kane stepped forward immediately. "You know what they are?" The old scientist remained silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes." Sophia's expression darkened. "Then start talking," she said coldly. Dr. Vale activated a hologram projector. Ancient star maps appeared above the room. "These creatures are called the Voidborn," he explained. "They are older than every civilization in the galaxy. Thousands of years ago, they destroyed countless species before suddenly disappearing." Kane frowned. "Why did they return now?" The scientist hesitated. Then he revealed the truth humanity had never known. "Because of us." The hologram changed again, now showing Earth nearly 500 years earlier. During humanity's first faster-than-light experiments, scientists discovered something hidden beneath Antarctica. An enormous underground structure buried deep under the ice. Not human, not alien, something ancient. Sophia crossed her arms. "What does this have to do with the Voidborn?" Dr. Vale looked directly at her. "That structure was a prison," he whispered. The room became silent again. Inside it, Vale continued, human scientists accidentally awakened a signal sleeping for millions of years. A signal connected to the Voidborn. Commander Kane's face hardened immediately. "You're saying humanity called them here?" The scientist lowered his head slowly. "Yes." Anger spread across the room instantly. "All these deaths," one officer shouted. "All these destroyed worlds because of one experiment?" Dr. Vale shook his head quickly. "No," he replied. "The truth is worse." The hologram shifted one final time, showing strange symbols found inside the ancient structure. Symbols identical to those covering enemy ships. Then another image appeared, human DNA patterns. Sophia stared at the screen carefully. Realization slowly filled her eyes. "No," she whispered. Dr. Vale nodded sadly. "Humanity is connected to the Voidborn," he said quietly. "Their creators used ancient genetic engineering long before recorded history. Part of the Voidborn exists inside human DNA itself." Nobody spoke after hearing those words. For centuries, humans believed they were simply another young species fighting for survival. Now they discovered something terrifying. Humanity had been connected to the galaxy's greatest nightmare from the very beginning. Commander Kane looked furious. "And the Galactic Council knew this?" Dr. Vale answered immediately. "Yes, that is the real reason humans were banned from galactic warfare. Not because the galaxy feared human violence. They feared what humanity might become before anyone could respond." Emergency alarms suddenly exploded across the underground facility. Red lights flashed violently through the chamber. A tactical officer rushed inside, breathing heavily. "Commander," he shouted, "we just lost contact with Mars colonies." Another officer appeared seconds later. "Jupiter Defense Network offline. Enemy fleets detected inside the solar system." Sophia looked shocked. "That's impossible. Human defense borders around the solar system were considered impenetrable. No enemy fleet should have crossed them unnoticed." Then another transmission appeared automatically across the hologram screens. Static filled the room for several seconds before the image finally stabilized. A human face appeared, but something looked terribly wrong. The man's skin moved unnaturally beneath his flesh. Dark veins covered his neck. His glowing red eyes stared directly into the camera. Several officers stepped backward in horror. "The Voidborn are already among us," the infected human whispered. Then the transmission suddenly cut out. Commander Kane immediately understood the danger. The enemy had not only entered the solar system, they had infiltrated humanity itself. Panic spread across Earth Command moments later as reports flooded every military channel. Entire stations stopped responding, ships disappeared without battle. Human officers turned against their own crews suddenly. Nobody knew who could still be trusted inside the chaos. Admiral Sophia Reyes turned toward Kane slowly. "If the Voidborn can hide inside humans," she said quietly, "then this war may already be lost." But Commander Kane shook his head firmly. "No," he replied coldly. "This is exactly why humanity survives." Sophia frowned slightly. Kane activated a hidden military file only top commanders could access. The screen displayed one classified phrase, Project Hades. Several officers looked confused immediately, but Sophia's eyes widened with shock. "You can't be serious," she whispered. Kane stared at the burning tactical map of the solar system. Then he gave the order humanity once promised never to use again. "Wake Hades, far beneath the surface of the moon." Something ancient and terrifying slowly opened its eyes. The moon shook violently beneath the surface. Deep inside a hidden underground chamber, larger than entire cities, ancient machines slowly came back to life. Massive red warning lights illuminated endless walls of black metal. Cold air moved through forgotten hallways that had remained sealed for over 100 years. Project Hades was awake on Earth. Panic spread across every major city. Emergency sirens echoed through crowded streets while military ships filled the skies above the planet. People looked upward in fear as distant explosions flashed near Earth's orbit. The war had finally reached humanity's home, inside Earth Command. Commander Elias Kane stood beside Admiral Sophia Reyes, watching the tactical map collapse in real time. Enemy fleets were spreading across the solar system faster than expected. Mars colonies had already fallen silent. Defense stations near Saturn were gone completely. And now thousands of black enemy ships moved directly toward Earth. A nervous officer rushed toward Kane. "Commander," he said quickly. "Civilian evacuation ships are ready." Kane shook his head immediately. "There is nowhere left to run," he replied. The room became silent again. Everybody understood the truth. If Earth fell, humanity would disappear forever. Suddenly the giant command screens changed automatically. A live battle appeared near Jupiter. Human fleets were fighting desperately against overwhelming enemy numbers. Explosions covered the darkness of space like burning stars. Dozens of human ships rammed directly into enemy vessels after losing weapon systems. Others continued firing, even while breaking apart. Humanity fought with terrifying determination. One damaged captain shouted across fleet communications moments before his ship exploded. For Earth, the transmission ended in static. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. Then another officer spoke urgently. "Enemy supercarrier entering lunar orbit." Every tactical screen zoomed toward the massive black ship slowly approaching the moon. It was larger than anything humanity had seen before. Its shadow covered entire sectors of space. And at its center burned the same giant red core responsible for destroying entire fleets. Commander Kane looked toward Sophia quietly. "If that thing reaches Earth..." Sophia finished the sentence for him. "We lose everything." Far beneath the moon's surface, Project Hades continued activating. Gigantic power systems hummed through underground tunnels while automated weapons unlocked one by one. Finally, inside the central chamber, a massive machine slowly rose from darkness. It did not look like a normal weapon. It looked like a mechanical god built for war. Ancient black armor covered its enormous body. Blue energy moved beneath its surface like living fire. At the center of the machine glowed a single artificial eye. Watching silently, an old military AI voice echoed through the chamber. "Hades combat system online. Awaiting target designation, back above the surface." The battle around Earth became worse every minute. Enemy ships broke through human defense lines near the moon. Thousands of civilians watched giant explosions in the night sky from Earth below. Children cried while emergency shelters filled underground. For the first time in history, humanity truly faced extinction inside the cruiser Valkyrie. Captain Mira Sol prepared her remaining ships for one final attack. Half her fleet was already destroyed. Most surviving vessels were heavily damaged. But retreat was impossible. She opened fleet-wide communication calmly. "This is Captain Mira Sol," she said quietly. "We hold the line here, no matter the cost," around her. Tired soldiers and pilots listened silently. Nobody argued, nobody asked for escape. Humanity understood sacrifice better than any species in the galaxy. Moments later, the final charge began. Human cruisers accelerated directly toward the enemy supercarrier, while rail cannons fired endlessly into the darkness. Enemy ships exploded around them, but more continued arriving. Captain Mira watched the giant red core charging slowly at the center. The battlefield became completely silent. Human fleets stopped firing. Even the void-borne ships pulled away from Earth slowly, across the solar system. Every soldier stared toward the giant black crack spreading through space near Saturn. The darkness inside it moved like a living storm. Stars disappeared behind it. Light itself bent unnaturally around the massive opening. Inside Earth Command, nobody spoke for several seconds. Then the ancient voice returned again, deeper than before. "You were warned long ago." The sound echoed directly inside human minds instead of through speakers. Several officers collapsed instantly from pain. Others covered their ears in fear. Commander Elias Kane forced himself to remain standing while staring at the dimensional breach. "What is that thing?" One soldier whispered. Admiral Sophia Reyes answered quietly. "The real enemy." Far near Saturn, even the void-borne fleet looked small beside the growing darkness. Their giant warships began retreating rapidly away from the crack, for the first time since the war began. The void-borne were afraid. Then something emerged. A massive shape slowly moved from inside the darkness beyond space itself. Nobody could fully understand what they were seeing. The creature was larger than moons. Its body looked like living shadow mixed with burning red stars. Thousands of glowing eyes opened across its surface one by one, every eye staring toward humanity. Toward Earth, the ancient entity had awakened, and Project Hades had opened the door for it. Panic spread through human fleets immediately. "This thing is bigger than planets," an officer shouted. "How do we fight that?" Commander Kane remained silent, because he already knew the truth. No fleet in the galaxy could destroy something like this. Suddenly, a transmission request appeared from the Voidborn. Sophia looked shocked immediately. "They want communication?" Kane nodded slowly. "Open it." The horrifying face of the Voidborn leader appeared again across the screens. But now its expression looked different. Fear. "The Devourer has awakened," the creature said quickly. "If it reaches your galaxy, all life ends." One human officer laughed bitterly. "So now you want to help us?" The Voidborn leader ignored the insult. "Long ago we served the Devourer," it explained. "But we escaped its control. We searched the galaxy for the only species capable of stopping it." Its glowing eyes focused directly on Kane. "Humanity, inside Earth Command." Confusion spread instantly. Commander Kane stepped forward slowly. "Why humans?" The Voidborn leader answered quietly. "Because humanity carries the ancient genetic code of the first builders, the creators of Project Hades. The only civilization that ever wounded the Devourer and survived." Sophia's face hardened immediately. "So this entire war was preparation," the Voidborn admitted. "We needed humanity strong enough to fight what was coming, before anyone could respond." The giant entity near Saturn moved again. One enormous shadow arm stretched outward across space. Then an entire moon disappeared instantly, not destroyed, consumed. Every fleet sensor screamed warnings together. "The entity is approaching Earth." Commander Kane looked around the war room carefully. Humanity had spent centuries fighting the galaxy, surviving impossible wars and preparing for enemies like the Voidborn. But this thing was beyond anything they imagined. Then suddenly, Project Hades transmitted a hidden message directly to Kane. A final protocol, one last weapon, remained inside the ancient machine. But activating it would destroy Hades completely, and the pilot controlling the system would never survive. Kane understood immediately what needed to happen. Sophia noticed the look in his eyes. "No," she said firmly. "You're not doing this alone." Kane smiled weakly for the first time in days. "This was always humanity's war," he replied, minutes later. The remaining human fleet gathered near the moon beside Project Hades. Damaged ships from dozens of battles formed one final defense line around Earth. Even surviving alien fleets joined them, for the first time in galactic history. Every species fought together under human command. Captain Mirasol opened fleet communications calmly. "All ships," she said. "This is humanity's final stand. Hold nothing back." Then the last battle began. Human fleets charged directly toward the Devourer, while Project Hades moved forward alone into deep space. The ancient entity released giant waves of darkness that erased entire ships instantly, but humanity continued advancing. Rail cannons, plasma weapons, ion beams. Every remaining weapon in the galaxy fired together at the massive creature. Explosions covered the darkness around Saturn like newborn stars. Inside Project Hades, Commander Kane activated the final sequence manually. Warning symbols filled every screen. Core overload beginning. Pilot survival impossible. Kane stared one last time toward Earth glowing far away in the darkness. Then he whispered quietly, "For humanity." Project Hades suddenly exploded with blue light brighter than the sun itself. A giant shockwave crossed the solar system instantly. The Devourer screamed for the first time. Its enormous body cracked apart under the energy blast. Then both the creature and Project Hades disappeared together into the collapsing dimensional breach. Silence returned across space. The war was over, months later. Earth slowly rebuilt its damaged cities while surviving fleets returned home. The Galactic Council officially removed humanity's ancient ban forever. A giant monument was built in the center of the capital world. Upon it, one sentence was written in every known language. When the universe needed warriors, humanity answered, but far beyond explored space. Deep inside the darkness between galaxies, a small human ship received an unknown signal. And somewhere in the void, something answered back.